All right, if you guys could take a seat, we're going to dive right in. We have a full presentation. You know, those are some good questions. Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone, for joining.
What you can do is you can give your answer up for the next question and then give your answer.
All right, I'm going to get started. So today our presentation is titled Fight the Bite, Climate Change and the Uptick of Vector-Borne Diseases in the ED. This is sponsored by the Climate Change and Health Interest Group and the Wilderness Medicine Interest Group. So we have a lot of people on this didactic. We can chat after and introduce everyone. So the learning objectives, we're going to understand how climate change impacts vector ecology. We're going to learn the wilderness medicine approach to preventing and treating vector-borne diseases. We're going to differentiate between different clinical presentations, and then we're going to practice treating different diseases. So we'll start out with some introduction slides, and then we have Kahoot, which is you'll have to use your personal device to log in and play a game. We have no disclosures. We got some Kahoot fans in the audience. All right. So vector-borne diseases are dominating headlines across the country. We are seeing dengue fever in California, Eastern equine encephalitis in New York, along with many other vector-borne diseases throughout the country. But why is this happening? We know that climate change is partially to blame. Climate change is real and it's happening right now. Data have shown us that temperatures are increasing throughout the globe. And increasing temperatures lead to changes in precipitation patterns and more extreme weather, and this directly impacts vector ecology. So warmer temperatures mean expanded geographic distribution of vectors, there's longer disease transmission seasons, and there's also changes in transmission and dynamics.
One of the other things that we have to talk about when we're looking at vector-borne illness is One Health, which is the idea that the health of the environment, the animals, and the people in the environment are all connected. So we're seeing like closer interaction at the urban-wildland interface. We're seeing a lot more connection between people and vectors because of this. And then we're also seeing changes in different types of vegetation and these sorts of things that are changing vector ecology. This is just an example. Everyone knows about Lyme disease. If you've ever studied medicine, I'm sure you've gotten a great question about it. Something that we're seeing a lot with Lyme disease is the tick that transmits Lyme disease because of the increasing temperatures and changes in precipitation patterns. The tick is now found in a much wider geographic area. And this is important because people who aren't used to diagnosing it are seeing it whether or not they know it.
All right. So we're going to briefly discuss a few aspects of prevention. There are really multiple ways to try to prevent these vector-borne diseases, and you should be using multiple of them at a time. I'm going to talk a little bit about avoidance and clothing. I think we're pretty familiar with mosquitoes in particular, so I'll talk a little bit more about ticks. The tick environment, they like to be on plants that are about 1 to 2 feet tall, so they love areas of like wood edges with taller grasses or shrubbery around a house because they like to latch onto you as you pass by. Pets, especially dogs, are notorious for bringing them inside as well. So it's important to avoid those areas, to avoid doing things while you're out enjoying nature, like sitting down on a log to tie your shoe. That's another easy way to pick up ticks while you're out and about. From a clothing standpoint, there's a couple things that you can do, and the most important thing is to go out and look like a dork outside. Long pants, long pants, long sleeve t-shirt, tuck your pants into your socks, and then of course applying permethrin, that is the insecticide, to all your clothing. That's good for a good 5 washings typically, and can last for multiple weeks. It's also good to apply that to all your gear. So if you like to go out and camp, you can apply that to your tent, your sleeping bag, and some of your other gear as well. I want to briefly talk about some of the repellents. I'm not going to go through all this information, but I have them divided into the synthetic and then subsequently the botanical repellents. The synthetics are better studied. DEET has been around forever now at this stage. It's one of the cheaper ones. It's very effective overall, but you do have some alternative synthetics that are also very effective, like picaridin and IR3535. In contrast, the botanicals are somewhat newer. They are not as well studied. We don't have as much information on safety, for instance, with pregnancy. They also, on the whole, tend to be a little bit more expensive. They tend to not last as long, and they tend to not be as effective either.
All right, the moment you've all been waiting for. Okay, so you go to www.kahoot.it, or you can scan the QR code and then put in the game pin. You'll have to select a name, and then we'll get started. Okay, I'll give you like 10 more seconds to get your name in here. All right, let's get started. You can still add even when the questions are going.
How does it?
Oh, it'll go.
It'll go.
Now you'll read the
All right. So, in a recent study that was done, a national temperature increase of 3 degrees from the baseline is predicted to raise Lyme disease cases by how much?
All right. And then this will be your slide.
Oh. All right. So, in a recent study that did modeling of a couple of different rises in temperature, a 3 degrees Celsius rise in temperatures would increase Lyme disease by about 38%, or 55,000 new cases per year in the US alone, which is 236 million annually. And that is one of the more moderate ones. A more extreme rise would increase up to 145%. Interestingly, the Lyme cases in the southern states might actually be predicted to decrease slightly for a variety of reasons.
All right, this is a case. It's a 25-year-old female who returned from Puerto Rico with a fever, headache, myalgias, and arthralgias, retroorbital pain, diffuse rash, petechia with tourniquet. What is the diagnosis? This music is less stressful. It just stops if anyone answers. Okay. Wow. Good work. All right, so dengue fever, it's a good thing we only have 20 minutes because I could talk to you about dengue fever for at least 20 minutes. It's so cool, especially the vector, Aedes aegypti, which is like one of the most resilient mosquito species, can literally repopulate in a small puddle. But anyways, we're talking about dengue fever. You did a great job of answering that question correctly. It's from Aedes mosquitoes, including the Aedes aegypti. Most people will be asymptomatic, but the other people who have it will generally present with like a flu-like type illness. So it's really difficult to diagnose. The more easier to diagnose patients will have two of these syndromes who are on the bottom here. So dengue hemorrhagic fever and dengue shock syndrome. And I could talk more about the different subtypes of dengue and how they can cause you to be more likely to develop. So basically, if you have more than one infection with the different subtypes of dengue, you're more likely to develop these complications here. In general, though, for uncomplicated dengue, the treatment is supportive care. It gets a little bit more complicated with dengue hemorrhagic fever and dengue shock syndrome, but I don't have enough time to tell you about it today. So you can look it up in your favorite EM textbook or on Up to Date or Dynamedics.
Okay, we have another case. You have a 40-year-old male with fevers, myalgias, rash, change in mentation, weakness, difficulty ambulating yesterday, and now he can't even pick up his arms. He went to Arizona. What happened? I think that's everybody. West Nile virus. So we're seeing transmission of West Nile from various types of mosquitoes, primarily the Culex mosquito. We are seeing a pretty significant increase in cases, particularly in the western and southwest regions. Most people come in with kind of a flu-like syndrome, so fever, headaches, myalgias, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, rash. The more extreme versions are meningitis, encephalitis, or an ascending paralysis. Unfortunately, all you can do is supportive care, but I diagnosed probably one case of this a year during residency, so it's real and it's out there and it's coming for you.
It's coming for you.
All right. We have a 40-year-old gravid female with fever, headache, nausea. Recently was at the Ozarks. They're febrile, tacky, low blood pressure. They had a rash on their wrist, but now it's more central. Their platelets and sodium are low. They have high LFTs. What do you give them?
All right. When there's any question and we're talking about ticks, just choose oxy, right? So, so this is Rocky Mountain spotted fever, and this is important to diagnose because without treatment, the mortality rate is actually fairly high still. We're talking in the 10 to 20% range, and doxycycline is for everyone. There's whether they're kids, pregnant, everyone gets doxycycline. The doxycycline to 7 days. A recommendation is 5 to 7 days, but then you may need to extend this on a couple 3 days post fever breaking. Starts with kind of a central pedral rash that then spreads outwards, Again, much like everything else, we're bringing these to you guys because we may need to think outside of our box from what we were traditionally diagnosing. We may be seeing some of these in regions that we're not used to seeing them. So.
All right. Another case, we have a 40-year-old female who is in Florida. She's got fever, lymphadenopathy, oh God, chest pain, skin lesion, some kind of a bug bite maybe. And her echo has pericardial effusion. She's got elevated inflammatory markers. What are we thinking, folks? Somebody. All right, very good. Chagas. Oops.
Yeah, we'll do that.
Very good. So, American trypanosomiasis, more commonly known as Chagas disease, and a lot easier to say after you've had a couple of drinks. These are most commonly transmitted by triatomine bugs. It's not actually the bite, although the bite helps. It's actually that they poop on your skin and you scratch it and it gets inside. Yeah, I know, it's really dark. So this transmits the T. cruzi parasite, which, believe it or not, is actually found in the southern United States, in addition to places you more commonly think of like Central and South America. And just for more nightmare fuel, There's actually 11 different species that live in the southern United States. We don't see them very commonly here, and most often you're getting transmission from those Central and South American sites, even into Europe. But just in case you ever see something and you wonder, is this that weird bug I saw in medical school? Yes, it very well could be. The really scary thing about Chagas disease is just that it's so difficult to diagnose in the period of time in which you could really act upon. So early on, it's asymptomatic. That's when you could diagnose because there's circulating parasites. And after that, you don't really know it's there, but that's when it's like coming to kill you. So in that way, it's kind of insidious, a lot like syphilis. And of course, you already know the way to. Did we do we switched from the diagnosis question, but the diagnosis, the treatment, if you do land a diagnosis, would be benznidazole or nifurtimox, both are are super toxic. So those of you in translational science, here's a great opportunity for you.
Is this me? Oh, okay. 65-year-old male. He's not 40. Has a headache, fevers, altered mental status, traveled to the Everglades, Florida, admitted to the hospital, deteriorates, becomes comatose, and dies. It's Florida, so it could be anything. Florida man. Good job, everybody. Eastern equine encephalitis. So here you can see Eastern equine encephalitis is found in a variety of different locations throughout the United States, mostly in the East, not always in places that have a lot of horses. It's transmitted primarily by the Culiceta melanura mosquito vector, which is also fun to say after you've had a few drinks. It's found in swampy areas in North America, particularly in the eastern United States and throughout the South. Presentation for most individuals. So this is like West Nile. 99% of people that have this infection will have no symptoms whatsoever, and your body will clear it. But the people that are at higher risk are people who are immunocompromised or are children. And people who have had transplants. So people who have had transplants in particular are at higher risk. You can have mild symptoms. If you're going to have symptoms, you're going to have either mild or severe symptoms. Those who are immunocompromised tend to have very severe symptoms, and the mortality rate is higher. You'll have encephalitis, coma, seizures, death. For the people who are not immunocompromised, that are the unlucky 1% that do get infected with this and have symptoms, they tend to be mild viral-like symptoms. So you wouldn't even think that you'd have AAA. You probably think it's just, like OG coronavirus or rhinovirus or something like that. It's really the severe sort of cases that we worry about. And as we see more swampy areas, with increased rainfall patterns throughout the East, we've started to see more cases of AAA.
All right, who are our winners? Unknown. Third place. Second place goes to Sleepy. In first place, drum roll. I'm a tick. All right, great job, everyone. All right, so let's open it up to any questions. Yes.
Clinical suspicion. So how do we know that 99%?
Do you need to know that they have it? They're going to get better on their own.
I mean, I think keeping it on your differential, like knowing about it and thinking about it, right? So like it's something that you can consider. And so maybe you're not worried about EEE or, maybe it doesn't quite fit. But like, I think even thinking about it, if things escalate, then you've got it in the back of your mind. It's a fair question though.
They've done more routine studies with serology and West Nile virus as opposed to AAA, and the two are very similar to each other in terms of their infectious severity. So that's how you can really tell, is by doing more screening testing in areas that tend to have outbreaks. Yeah, go ahead.
Question for Dr. Watkins. When is it appropriate to get Lyme titers?
Never.
Usually you need to wait at least several weeks. of illness. A lot of times there's a lot of debate of getting Lyme titers in the acute phase because of the concern for false negatives and then not getting the appropriate treatment for them. So you wait at least 2 weeks, probably wait closer to a month, most likely, but that's a source that's a little bit debatable.
I would say if you're concerned about Lyme, you should probably be treating for Lyme.
I will say, just going back to the West Nile and Triple E question, so you've probably missed a case of one of these in your career, and probably will miss a case of one of these in your career, just like, HSV encephalitis. So it's more so to have that suspicion for these high-risk populations for ordering this testing, which is likely going to be highly complicated anyways through whatever your public health system is. Here's a fun fact about Chagas disease. It was generally spread throughout the blood supply until relatively recently. So people tend to be asymptomatic for 20 years or more with Chagas disease. So people would donate blood and not even realize that they had it and would infect other individuals. This occurred quite a bit in South America. In the United States, people would also donate blood, and only recently have they come up with a screening protocol for it so that they can try to eliminate it from the blood supply.
Thanks for coming, everyone. Please come to our interest group meetings tomorrow. Wilderness medicine at 8 a.m. We didn't pick the time, and then climate change at 3 p.m.